The time has come. I'm going to take the Windows 10 Minimum Spec PC and turn it into a retro gaming powerhouse. Come along for the ride. This computer was always intended to be a retro PC. I know, it has the wrong case, and it has too much RAM, and the CPU is too fast. However, it was always my intention to use this PC as a mid to late 90s to early 2000s retro gaming PC for hardware-accelerated titles that I couldn't play on DOSBox. It's not period correct, but I don't really care. It's gonna run these games really well, probably better than its creators intended them to run, which might have some downsides, we'll see. But for me personally, this was the time period that I played the majority of my PC games. Civilization 2, Doom 2, Quake 2, Quake 3, which came out in 1999. I feel like it wasn't that long ago, but it was an age and a half ago. It's also the era where I couldn't really afford a lot of the games I wanted to play. I was relinquished to playing demos. I had to relinquish myself to playing demos or reading about the games I wanted to play in PC Gamer or GamePro magazine. When I was younger, I wasn't able to actually enjoy some of the earlier 3D games. I didn't have a notable 3D card at the time. I had one of these, an S3 ViRGE. If you know anything about them, you'll know that they're most commonly called 3D decelerators, usually due to the fact that, for example, if you turn on S3 acceleration in Tomb Raider, it actually goes slower than it does in software rendering, with no 3D acceleration at all. So my attempts to play games like Descent 2, Descent 3, Forsaken, Quake 2 on this didn't go over so well. And I kind of missed out on the whole Voodoo graphics revolution until Voodoo was almost entirely irrelevant and 3dFX was nearly bankrupt, at which point I got a 3dFX Voodoo Banshee, widely regarded as one of the worst 3dFX cards they ever made. This time around, I have a Voodoo 3 with me instead of my Voodoo Banshee, which should prove quite a lot more competent in gaming. Along with the ViRGE and the Voodoo, I also have an ATI Radeon 9200 SE, which, despite being a PCI card, does have transform and lighting built into it, which is rare for the time. This card should allow me to play direct 3D games that require more than the 16 megabytes of video memory that the Voodoo 3 has, and more than the 4 megabytes that the ViRGE has. For sound duties, I have this AOpen Cobra, which is actually an interesting little card. This is a Yamaha YMF 744 PCI card. And the interesting part about this is it's not only XG compatible, so it has a wavetable on it, it also has a built-in legacy block, which includes an OPL3, a real OPL3 for FM music, which I think is going to be fantastic. I've heard it can be a little bit tricky getting these to work in DOS, but I should have an easier time of it than something like an Ensoniq Solo 1, which I've heard has not worked very well for a lot of people. I can already hear you saying, well, it sounds great, but how are you going to put two cards in it? How are you going to put two PCI cards in there? It only has one slot. That's where this comes in. This is a PCI slot multiplier. This allows me to take one PCI slot and turn it into two. How does that work? PCI is a bus, and one electrical connection services more than one physical slot. This is the same way PCI Express works, but notably not the same way that AGP works. AGP is a port and expects only one device at the end of that connector. The operating systems I'm going to be using for this build are Windows 98, the included DOS for Windows 98, since I'm not reaching too far back in time, and Windows 2000 to give me some additional compatibility with some slightly newer games. And so, without further ado, let's get started. The first thing I'm noticing is I don't know if I'll be able to use this SATA connector. I hope I can, because it's really convenient. The other SATA connector on the board is nestled in here between these capacitors and the heatsink, which is super not helpful. Alright, so this is backwards, so this is going to go this way. Plug in here. Ooh, I think it'll fit. I think it'll fit. It fits, yay! Oh, and it's... oh, I think it'll work. Look at that. I might not even have to move them down to the bottom slot. I think I can use this slot and this slot. No way. No way. That's awesome. Alright, so I need to remove... let's find out which ones I need to remove. Let's use... let's use the ViRGE to test. Drop that in here. That's gonna go... yeah, it will be the bottom two slots. Okay. Hopefully, this won't conflict. We'll find out. So that's that part of the build. I also want to add this hard drive. I know it's not, again, it's not period correct, but I want a quiet PC. Yeah, I know, PCs from like the late 90s, early 2000s were noisy. I know, I had one. But this one I've got to live with, so I want it to be quiet. And these older operating systems don't work super well with SSDs. I currently have an SSD in this. It's just a little 8 gigabyte SSD from SanDisk. It's nothing special, but my gosh, does this thing have trouble with it. So I'm going to go with a regular hard drive. I'm trying to think of the best way to show this on camera. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Basically what I want to do is mount this drive. We've got the mounting bays for drives here. Mount one 2.5-inch drive here, one 2.5-inch drive here. We have a drive cage down here that accepts two 3.5-inch drives. The reason I said this is the wrong case, there are no 5.25-inch drive connectors on this case. We've got two, out here, two fans on the intake, that's it. There's no external drive bays, which is annoying, because this is the era where most games were distributed on CD-ROM. So yeah, that'll be interesting. And annoying. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the clip here and install this. I think I'm going to install it in this bay. I think here, going that direction. Oh, I bet you I installed it on the other side. Underneath, this way. Okay. That shouldn't be too bad. I might even be able to film that. Alright, we'll be right back. Well, there it is. After installing the OSs, which was about a 6-hour process, I had a functional Windows 98 and Windows 2000 dual booting retro PC. It's actually pretty spot on as far as time period of games I'd like it to run. I was trying to shoot for the mid-90s to early 2000s, and it turns out the oldest game I can run on it is Duke Nukem 2 from 1992. And the newest game that runs on it that I've tried so far at least is Black and White 2 from 2005. So it looks like I nailed it as far as performance goes. Caveat, Duke Nukem 2 took a little time to get working with the sound card. Initially, I only had ad-lib support until I realized I had to run it in a DOS box inside Windows 98 in order for the DMA stuff to work, in order to get sound effects out of the Sound Blaster portion of the sound card. And that is something you're going to encounter with pretty much any PCI sound card and DOS games, unfortunately. And caveat 2, Black and White 2 runs, but it only runs on low, and that was with an empty map. So I'm sure once I had that map populated with houses and roads and my creature doing things and armies, I'm sure it would have slowed to a crawl. And that actually kind of makes sense. I mean, it's a Radeon 9200 SE, and that CPU is about equivalent to a Pentium 3 750, and Black and White 2 is really meant to run on a mid-range Pentium 4. So, with that said, I captured some game footage from inside Windows 2000 over my DPI connection, so you can see just how well it runs a smattering of games. Unfortunately, I still don't have a good method for recording DOS games or anything that uses the 320x200 VGA video mode. Unfortunately, my capture card just refuses to capture it, and the signal out from the Radeon's S-Video port is horrendously noisy and basically unusable. So, with that said, I'm going to keep working on that part because I'd love to be able to capture some of these old DOS games. I think it'd be really great to see. But I don't know how long that's going to be before I can do that. So until then, I do have 3D accelerated games from inside Windows running on the Radeon, captured over the DVI cable, with analog sound capture. So enjoy.
In wet sector 432. Yeah, baby.